The Tyler Clippard of podcasting returns with another exceptionally exciting episode of TWIF. This time we have a guest coming off of a tumultuous and important win, a win that really defined his season. It's Rampy. How's it going, Ramp?
Hey man, how's it going? I got a better connection from Korea than Ben does from 20 miles away from you, and I'm ready to do this.
Coming in live from all the way in South Korea with half the ping of the King of Funny. It is Rampy. So let's start reviewing last week's games and talk a little bit about last week's actions, and we can get into it as usual. We can start things off with my loss versus Mark. The writing was sort of on the wall with this one. Narrative-wise, I gave Mark his first win, which was cute, but I was down after Thursday night at a serious disadvantage, and Saquon Barkley played like one play and got hurt. That was pretty much the story of my team, honestly. No one really performed well except for Madison, who looks great with Cook out, and the Bills actually did really well against Kansas City. I'm glad that I didn't drop someone to replace the Bills defense, but I just want to get your thoughts on the Cowboys game and all those players that got hurt for the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, man, the Giants, like, their offensive line is just so bad. So basically, anybody in that backfield, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, they're at a super high injury risk because they're getting hit harder than anybody else is getting hit in the league, basically. Daniel Jones is sacrificing his body trying to do something for the Giants, and it's really just not going to work out in the long run. Like, they just need to the Giants ownership needs to take freaking accountability for what they've done here in drafting such a terrible offensive line, and work on that to go with. I think like your team was pretty screwed after that Thursday night game with Tyler Lockett only putting up 5,
Yeah,
and Matt Stafford only putting up 16. I think that was a huge loss for you, and then honestly the rest of it just kind of fell into place. Even though you did have some standouts by Madison and the Bills defense.
that's a good point. So, do you think that Mark is suddenly like right there and in it and a threat? He put up over 100. He only has one win. Do you think he has some comeback potential with this team?
I think anytime you have Aaron Rodgers on your team, and I think he has two like one really good receiver in Cooper Cup, and he has Najee Harris who seems to be doing better. I think he has a possibility of coming back. I think I actually play him this week, so I'm a little worried about his trajectory here. But I don't know if he's replaced the Titans defense, but I think they had a nice week against Jacksonville, but otherwise they're like the worst defense in the entire league. So
Wow.
I don't know. I'm not super high on Mark this year. He really didn't have a good draft, especially when he auto drafted a tight end and picked a second tight end to start off with. I think it's just going to be a bad year for him overall.
Okay, we can move on. Clap 4 and Weston. This is a big game because Weston's considered a very strong owner, put up 101 and lost. This is also more significant because Russell, my Jimmy's Wilson, got hurt pretty bad. He'll be out 6+ weeks. This just guts the Seattle offense, nerfs their weapons down, and hurts Weston's team. And this injury is coming in conjunction with Zeke getting banged up a little. What are your thoughts on this little warfare match, and what are things looking like going forward for Weston?
I think for Weston, like anytime you can put up 101 and your quarterback and your two wide receivers and your tight end put up less than like 10 each, you're honestly still in a pretty decent position. He's got because you can trade out a Russell Wilson for somebody who's pretty serviceable, and as long as your running backs are doing that well, even though Zeke's a little banged up, like I think he'll be all right. Uh, and the Cowboys' schedule isn't looking like the most horrible thing in the next couple weeks.
Oh, let me
Uh,
rephrase that for you. It's full of cupcakes. This is one thing that if you're a Cowboy fan and you're looking around with how many wins they have now and the strength of the division, you're like, well, holy shit, this is actually our division to lose. Even if you're cynical, you got Denver, who is laughably overrated. Atlanta, who's a bottom 5 team with no defense. Minnesota, who's inconsistent and really hasn't been a legitimate threat in 3 years. Vegas, who lost
and
their coach. Fucking Washington and the Giants and Washington again. This is a soft schedule.
and you even got inconsistent New Orleans. You have Kansas City, who's playing one of the worst defenses in the entire league too. Like,
They don't look as
it's
good as they've
possible,
looked in the
man.
last few years either. Even the games
No.
that in the beginning of the season you might just say, "Oh, pencil in an L." That one's a
Yeah.
loss. The New England game, the Kansas City game, the Arizona game. These were all games that people looked at and like, "Oh, this real scary stuff." And it's just like
Hmm.
it's an easy schedule.
Yeah.
And you got the wins out of the
Things have
way.
shaken out pretty crazily.
Yeah, you're not you don't
So
you win the games that you should win against like the Giants and Philly, and you get Carolina win their week. The Chargers gift you a game. Tampa tried
yeah,
to gift you a game. I mean, with as bad as Tampa played, the Cowboys could legitimately be undefeated right now, which is hilarious. I
it's true.
I think the
Although
emergence of
I'm very
Diggs.
glad, like I said, as a Cowboys fan, I'm very glad that they are not undefeated because that would be the worst thing in the entire world for the Cowboys itself.
Yeah, it
They
would
would
be
just have
terrible.
so much overconfidence and maybe losing against Philly again or something like that.
Well, I think it's their ability to cause turnovers on defense because their defense hasn't necessarily gone to top tier, but their ability to stay ahead in the turnover margin has really been the difference this year for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if you look at the Cowboys' offense, man, like Cowboys' offense always puts up a ton of numbers and yards, right? And if they can just punch that in every once in a while, having the ball on offense will put their enemies in a bad field position either way, right? So if they do get turnovers, like they're gonna make the other team start in bad field position, or they're gonna get some touchdowns, put some points on the board. So it's really helping them out a whole lot with this improved defense and Trayvon Diggs basically just carrying the whole team.
Specifically, Diggs has been incredible and has sort of solo carried a couple games on defense. But what I thought was interesting regarding the Cowboys was a lot of their success has been predicated off of establishing the run. When this team was at their best in 2016, Zeke Elliott was getting 20 plus carries a game. Since Zeke got paid, he's checked out, but the emergence of young Tony Pollard has lit a fire under the ass of Zeke. He's improved significantly. Pollard, as a weapon himself, has improved the offense. It's taken pressure off of Dak and enabled him to do more play action style passes as opposed to the spread offense, air it out style we were seeing at the beginning of last year. And overall, the Cowboys dominating time of possession, like you said, whenever they really abuse the run a lot, that's the win condition. Get the run established, and then your defense doesn't have to be on the field forever, and the other team is forced to pass more. The other team has to put more people in the box when you're on offense because you're really threatening them with the run. When the Cowboys are a pass happy team, they're really bad because it sort of has a cascading effect, Ramp. If the run doesn't work, then the defense doesn't work, and then you're asking Dak to throw 40 times a game. And while idiot fans might have their jaws put to the floor by all the yards he has at the end of that loss, it's not actually conducive to the win conditions for the Cowboys. So it's been really refreshing to see them establish the run in these games.
Yeah, it has been. It's been really good. We the boys. I love my Cowboys.
But you got to say it with some enthusiasm. How about them Cowboys? How about them Cowboys? I mean,
How about them Cowboys? You know how it goes, man. Come on.
they might actually. They
But
might.
I'm trying to keep it tame. I'm trying to keep it tame this year because the more Cowboys fans get like bolsterous and stuff, the worse we do, really.
Yeah, well, I think the Cowboys are going to be capable of choking, irregardless of fan response. But I know what you mean because, like, I mean, I know what you mean about being undefeated too. Like, could you imagine if they were undefeated? Like, how much
We
fucking
wouldn't hear
hype,
anything about the whole other NFL. Like
and
it would
not
just be about the
and
Cowboys.
not just from Cowboys fans. Like, even on ESPN and the pregame shows, Dallas still undefeated. Can Dallas stay undefeated? Meanwhile, everyone who knows anything about the league knows they're not a top five team. Will they make the playoffs? Sure. Can they win one game? Sure. But like a legitimate threat to win the NFC? Probably not. What do you think the Cowboys' odds are of winning the NFC title game? Like if you had to put a percent number on it.
Well, I would honestly say that the Cowboys are a top five team right now. But the reason why I think is more because they're the most consistent that I've seen out of a lot of these teams. Like you have like the Kansas City team that should be like a top five team on paper, but they can't get it together on defense. You got the Bucks who like play down to their competition every once in a while here,
Bucks are
and
still better
like
than the Cowboys though. Like
I
definitely.
agree, but like you said, like the Cowboys should have beat them the first game they played. But I still think the Bucks are better. And then you have like the Rams, who they're looking a little suspect right now. Their defense has gotten a little worse than it was. Like they're getting a little banged up.
Still better than the
The
Cowboys
really in
though,
my
I think. And so are the
I'm not saying
Bills.
they're not. I'm talking about other top five teams that'll be in that conversation, right? So you have like the Bucks, the Cardinals, the Rams, the Bills, and what should be probably Kansas City. But like the Cowboys are probably in that Kansas City spot at number five, but like they probably shouldn't be there right now. But they're playing so consistently and beating teams like with authority that I think you have to put them there right now.
I think that's a fine take, especially when you consider the Seahawks are free falling without Russ. The Saints
Mhm.
look really sort of ineffective and not like they used to. Taysom got domed last week. And I sort of put the Saints and New England in the same little boat of they have a great coach, but they're in sort of a transitional period where they're still finding their footing. What made
Mhm.
going into New England, like we see the Cowboys doing this week, if you think about that in the past, going into New England was sort of this almost unfathomable. It was like going beyond the wall in Game of Thrones. It was like you were gonna freeze your ass off and you were gonna die. Those were the two certain things. It's not really like that anymore. People still sort of see that Patriot logo up there and have that feeling in their head. It's really not like that anymore. Playing in New England is no longer like an auto loss. Same with having to play down in the Metrodome, and I know the Saints have been displaced, but in general, the thing that made playing the Saints in the Pats different was the consistency, especially when you had to travel and play them. We haven't seen that
Mhm.
from the Saints or the Pats this year. The one other top five potential team that I would float would be Arizona. They look very strong and have a very potent attack. Like, what do you think from
Yeah.
Arizona this season? They just got Zach Ertz too.
Yeah, no, I had Arizona in my top five. I think they're ranked number two right now. I think it's Bills and Cardinals, and then I think I forgot to mention the Packers. But after this last weekend's performance against the Bengals, like I'm not sure how where I put them now because that was one of the worst games I've ever watched. Honestly,
The Packers look real
with
inconsistent.
they do, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Like these teams are all inconsistent. Like the Cowboys have been consistently like out of character consistent. And it's kind of like it's throwing me off a little bit because I'm like, when is the fall going to happen? Like, when is it going to happen? Is it going to be another one of those like years where the Cowboys are good and Romo botches a snap in the playoffs, like to hold the kick to win? I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, it really felt like they were gonna before the game. I sort of had a vibe of there was a pretty good chance they would like have a shit the bed game and try to lose to the Giants. But by like halfway through the second quarter, the
Yeah,
Giants had a skeleton crew out there, and it was like
true.
it was almost impossible for the Cowboys to win. Like with all the in, with like by the end of the game, that the Giants were like about to GG and just fucking forfeit. Like seriously, they were like, we just want to get out of here without any more injuries occurring. This is ridiculous. So the Cowboys
Yeah,
are taking care of business when they need to, which means they're beating the shitter teams. So frequently we see divisions won or lost because teams with advantages can't take care of business. They can't beat the shitter teams. They can't beat the teams down on their luck and banged up, and the Cowboys have done that this season. I will say that yeah, Kansas City's had a couple fucky weeks. The Bills got embarrassed by the Steelers, but the Cowboys have definitely had an easy as shit schedule, and their remaining schedule is easy. I worry that
hmm
the Cowboys could honestly like be like a seed that hosts a playoff game and get fucking embarrassed. Because if you look at like by the end of the year, if you look at like who the Cowboys have beaten, there would have been legitimately challenged only like two or three times, and I could see the Rams coming to Jerry World and just shitting all over them just like that last time they were in the playoffs, but even worse. Like I think the Cowboys will win their division because of their competition, but I don't really believe in them as a legitimate threat.
yeah. I mean, it's always hard to put your faith in the Cowboys, and they let you down a lot.
Yeah,
Let's move over to the Jackson and Lily game because I think that one's really interesting.
let's do it. The Jackson put up 108 and lost pretty badly. The Hunt Chubb duo was just god tier in the shootout game. Both got over 20. Allen ran all over Kansas City, And even though Lilly had Hawkinson and Aguilar put up less, basically 3 or less, both of them, she completely
Hmm.
popped off here for 140.
Yeah, I mean that crazy duo. Like I think whoever he had on last week, it might have been Spencer or Ben.
Who's been?
Like they were just talking about that duo and how like nobody would ever start two running backs from the same team in fantasy, but somehow Lily's doing it and it's working well.
Yeah,
Like, yes, crazy enough, she has the best running back tandem in the whole league, and they're on the same team. Like,
yeah,
what in the world is going on in this thing?
and
But looks
conf-
like next week's going to be a problem for her since Nick Chubb's out.
yeah. Well, it's almost one of them good problems because it'll just funnel. Kareem Hunt will get 30 fucking carries. Like
Probably, yeah.
that's like a funny thing about this build. If one of them goes down, suddenly you're not shit out of luck. You have like a tier 1 guy. You're like a high tier 1
Yep.
guy as opposed to a low tier 1 guy. I also think that it's funny that like she does this build and at first it looks kind of reachy and looks like it's not going to work, but they literally run so much that it has worked and it's been decent, and it's conversely sort of screwed OBJ, and OBJ has yet to have a
True.
good week. He missed the first couple, but you would think with Landry out, OBJ would have performed better, but no, they literally just run like all the time. That's the Browns. They really
It's
control
honestly
ground
pretty
and
fun to
pound.
watch.
Yeah,
It,
the
it's pretty
Browns are
good to
one of
watch, honestly.
let's just say if you had to rank the 32 teams in terms of watchability, I would say that the Browns would be in the top 10.
I would agree, and it's quite fun to watch them. I think that also the Chargers are in the top 10 easily. And I think those two, that whole game that they played last week was just incredible watching it.
Anytime you
I
tune
mean,
into a Browns game, there's a chance that you could see something spectacular, like
yeah.
a recreation of the catch, or a recreation of Odell Beckham kicking the net, or Odell Beckham's different hair color. I mean, you could really see anything from the Browns, except Odell Beckham in the fucking end zone. That's one thing you're not likely to see.
True.
You got to feel for
True.
Jackson though. Put up 108, and
Oh yeah, I feel terrible for him.
Edwards-Helaire got hurt. AJ Green laid an egg. I was surprised to see the Arizona game not only be so low scoring, but that anyway, like I just feel like a lot of these Arizona weapons, you sort of run into the problems of it's like sort of like the Bucks offense where there's so many weapons where a lot
Yep.
of times you can start one and they're just going to have a fucking goose egg performance that's going to
It,
lose you a game.
it has been interesting though with the Bucks, like the the shift to Antonio Brown has been so big. Because like I mean, prior to Antonio Brown getting there, like, you'd think like, well, Chris Godwin's the top 5 receiver in the league or top 10 receiver in the league. Like Mike Evans is top 10 receiver in the league, and now they got Antonio Brown, and like somehow those two have been overshadowed so hard by the shortest guy on the team. Like that's just crushing defenses.
Antonio Brown's
It's
been great,
interesting.
but he'll have fucking terrible weeks where Evans will
Yeah.
get like the red zone looks and Godwin will get the yards. When Gronk comes back, like he's going to be vulturing touchdowns. Like I don't think AB is definitively the guy or has like won the number one role. He's just been popping off recently, and it's crazy to me that after all that bullshit with the blonde mustache and the blue braids and like the weird fucking recording of Coach Gruden, which hilariously after like that poor bastard got canceled from lit 2011 email. 2011, everyone's favorite year, and you know it's funny because it's
Don't
like
even bring it up. Don't bring it
it's
up.
the last year you were allowed to say anything or like have a thought, so it's like it's sort of funny how that works. But Gruden
Yeah.
got shit canned, and if you just consider Gruden's history, he was having that conversation with AB over the phone. The motherfucker was like recording him without telling him, like a really personal 1v1 call. He's like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna upload this real quick." Like I'm just glad that AB didn't get Gruden canned with that phone call. It was some other stupid shit.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I actually haven't followed the John Gruden story currently. I was kind of waiting for everything to settle down before I looked into it.
Well, his
But
he sent some emails that contained some Twitch chat stat tacular stuff that If I repeated here, the video would get taken down. So you'll just have to look up the quotes after. But
I will. I will.
you'll look it up expecting some like Nuke and Mythy shit and be like, oh, that's it. Like it's like 10 seconds of a
Yeah.
Modern Warfare 2 lobby. Now it's enough to ruin someone's life over. Okay, we can move on to an incredibly important, exciting game where the King of Funny was down by a spectacular margin going into Monday Night Football. Spence had this one all but sewn up. Another interesting dynamic of this was how Swift was being started for Spencer and did well, because
Yep.
obviously Ben traded Swift over, and then Gronk was hurt, and that was who Ben got, and then Noah Fant was on the bench and did nothing. So that's sort of like how the trade affected this, but I digress because this story's all about Monday night. Spencer up like insanely big, looking like there was
Yep.
really no way in hell he would win. Ben had two guys left, Lamar Jackson and this old
And Hollywood Brown.
Hollywood Brown, and Ben dropped Trow 66. And there was
Yeah.
really no looking back from that. I mean, just look at this fucking bar graph. Like, look at the gap. This is like this is like the fucking the San Diego Padres playoff odds bar graph, and this is like all the other teams in the NL in red. And this, you're like, well,
Oh my god.
wouldn't the blue line go down, Wiley? No, because this is their fucking pulse. This blue line. Since July, Jace Tingler just hitting clear over and over with the paddles every day. But just a brutal loss for Spence. You're up fucking 50 going into Monday Night Football, even against Lamar. It's like, well, I've got this. And good for Ben after he had those two insane comebacks against him. He got one for him, and Spencer's handed his first loss.
Yeah, so like I mean, this is just absolutely brutal for Spencer. But I was wondering, did you watch that game that's going on there?
No, I didn't watch the Monday night game. I was watching baseball.
So like again, for whatever reason, this last weekend, man, there was so many missed field goals. The Colts had the game won. The ball was on like the 30. It was an easy field goal for most teams. Like it was, I'm pretty sure it was in Indy. Maybe it was in Baltimore. But either way, like it wasn't a hard kick, and the guy just fucking missed it and sent him to overtime, which really put
Yeah,
Ben in like a good
Lamar
situation
needed
to win the game.
overtime and the last play to fight
It's
to
just
get the
crazy,
points.
dude.
It's
It's
it,
crazy.
it's brutal whenever someone's mounting a comeback on you in fantasy, and it's like, are they going to get there? They're getting close. I'm starting to worry, and you don't have anyone else going. Your points are iced,
Mhm.
and they're
Yep.
gaining, and then through some bullshit in the game, it goes to fucking overtime, and they get extra fucking attempts. That's just so grating to have to deal with that, man. That's
Oh yeah.
that's a
I
shitty
really
feeling.
understand.
Because whenever it's like fucking 8 guys going versus 7 guys all at noon, it's like a shootout and a shit show and you're watching Red Zone and it's fun. But when it's Monday night and the other guy is just coming back on you like it's no problem, fucking constantly being targeted, it's just brutal. The slow drip.
Yep. 100%.
Another fucking barn burning, high scoring game where AB got smoked here by the Gooch. AB putting up a very droopy 120. Tried to get cute starting Danny Dimes, who had a pathetic 5 against the Cowboys. Yeah, he got banged up, but probably not going to put up enough for you to win, you know what I mean? So, what do you think about AB's management? Because he started Danny Dimes and Galladay, and I know they got banged up, but I want to ask, like, not just specifically, what do you think about like the Giants start against the Cowboys, but what do you think about AB's management as a whole? Because you're in his division and you've played him and you've seen the moves that he makes. Sometimes he'll start these flyer guys over more established names, especially Claypool, who he just continues to bench when he gets over 10 points. Like, what do you think about AB's management this season?
Well, I think anytime you go to somebody's team and you see that they have two players starting that's on a team that has one win in the entire like in their over the season, I think that you know that there's something wrong. Like you're at least doing something wrong. You can't start the Giants quarterback and some receiver who got 0 points. Was he out for the game, or
No,
like was he just out?
he got hurt like early on, like Saquon. It wasn't a
Okay, like
mistake on
I
his
mean,
part in
but
terms of.
either way, like you shouldn't be starting two guys on the freaking Giants. Like especially when Dallas's defense has been playing as well as it has been.
Right, this isn't the
Like
Dallas
the
defense
Cowboys
of last
defense.
season.
Yeah, exactly. Like you had Chase Claypool, like who has a Denver matchup. Like Denver's decent on defense, yeah, but like you're still playing with Pittsburgh. Like they're gonna have a decent chance here. Like what are these guys ranked? Like 57 and like 34 or something like that. Like just start Chris Claypool or Chase Claypool. I mean, like just start him. Like you have a better chance with him than you do with Galladay. And I know like he's gotten some kind of like bad luck or whatever with Mark Andrews being kind of shit until this one game, and he has Devin Singletary, which Devin Singletary is always a bad pick in fantasy, unfortunately. Like
Thank you.
he just
He
is.
just
I had him
he has
last year.
too
He's
many
just
weeks
terrible.
like this.
Uh-huh.
He'll
Yep.
he'll have weeks where he gets the garbage time and he'll garbage time yards. He'll break away on a fucking flat stump off for 30, and you'd be like, "Oh, 8. This is great." Or he'll find the end zone for, God forbid, a 12-point game. You're loving it. Then he takes a dump in your mouth with 2, and like if you fucking consider how both performances affect you on a week-to-week basis, it's a net negative because like he's never gonna win you the game. Like his ceiling is to be okay, and his floor, which he hits all the goddamn time, is to straight lose you the game. So he's just a vexing guy to start. He's one of these like PPR only starts, one of these like flex fucking fill emergency guys. Don't like him, even though I do like the Bills and believe in the Bills and think they're going to go to the AFC title game. I really don't like Singletary as an option because they don't run that much. Like they run a decent amount if you include the quarterback, but when you
Yeah.
subtract Allen's runs and Moss's runs, it's like, oh well, Singletary is just like this guy that is ineffective on the ground and catches balls like when they're dumped off in the flats.
Yeah, I mean Singletary is a lot like the whole situation with Odell Beckham. Like even if he has a decent yardage game, he's still not going to find the end zone because Zach Moss is going to get him, or Josh Allen's just going to run it in.
Yeah, it's sort of like the
Uh,
opposite. It's like they pass a lot in Buffalo, so Singletary sucks, and like they run too much in the Browns offense, and that's why OBJ sucks. Or
yeah,
wait,
I
hold
think
on.
that.
OBJ's great, and you should rewatch the catch I mean, and he's still on the trade market for the record.
True. Yeah, yeah. I think AB's biggest thing is that like just like Mark, he messed up in the draft. If you mess up your top 5 picks, something is gonna happen. It's not gonna like you're not gonna have a good season basically. Like really and truly, like this total points of 124 is so skewed this week because of the fact that Mark Andrews got 30 by himself,
Well, look at
which is
how his team performed overall. Eckler
yeah,
28, Adams 27, Andrews
yep,
30, Flex Joke 17. It's like you put
yep,
up all these numbers, and you fuck up, or you lose, and it's like, well,
hmm
how did that happen? Well, you're getting too cute every week. It's like,
yep.
remember,
Like him changing his name too much.
it's yeah. I mean, it's just like I don't understand like his hyperactivity. I know it's funny because for years in this league we complain about people being like AFK and not caring enough. But with AB, it's like changing his ID every week. He's like very clearly like listening to like some podcast, presumably the Pat McAfee show, and then like hearing this is the guy that you want to pick up in your fantasy, like pick up who was the Quinton fucking Cephas and Seep in my butthole for the Lions. This was like a cutesy flash in the pan, like pick him up because the other guy went down, and like that's fine if you're fucking threadbare and it's bye weeks and you don't have anyone else to start, but it's like between like bad management, between drafting guys with blown out knees and
Yep.
fucking spiting to trading to spite people and like trying to get too cute. AB has definitely like been the worst manager so far this season. Would you agree or
Well, I think
disagree? Because Cam is still
it's got to
there.
be between him and Cameron. Like Cameron already started like week 3, he was starting people that were out.
Right.
So I think like like Spencer always says, like managing yourself into a loss. I think Austin does that more. Like
Yeah.
Cameron's lack of management, makes him lose.
That's a great point because like I give way much more leeway to someone like AB who's like trying to be too cute and fucking it up, as opposed like sitting there at 11 like with that guy that Always Sunny in Philadelphia like Charlie character like
Yeah,
pointing at the fucking board like AB trying to figure out who to flex .mp4 as opposed to Cameron who like wakes up at 1 and is like goes to hit the optimize button and like two of the guys had with O's by their
they
name
already
like
played.
Barry had fucking noon games. Like yeah, it's different kinds of bad, but you see the shit AB did and it's like it's almost like he thinks he gets like a style point bonus. Or like, what if I beat him without Claypool? Like I really don't understand in a team this threadbare why Claypool isn't getting like action every week. Claypool and Adams, Claypool and Adams.
Yeah, you definitely don't start Kenny Galladay. I don't care how good his stats are. Like, if you're gonna start Kenny Galladay, you cannot start Danny Dimes. His stats are terrible too. What the heck?
But Aaron, what about my discount double points?
No, I don't believe in him.
Okay, I love that.
I think too many teams have too many weapons nowadays, and they spread the ball out a lot. There's very few people that are hard receiver ones now. Like, unfortunately for you, it's looking like Mike Williams is one of those guys.
Certainly getting the red zone looks.
Yeah.
Another thing
Yeah,
about
I
this,
think
you know what jumps
great
out to me?
great win for Christian though, by the way.
Yeah, important one too. But what jumps out to me about this game is it's like, why are you starting Danny Dimes? And it's like, because he can run, because he can basically use his legs to like cheese out and get rushing yards. Like we all know that the fucking rushing quarterbacks can get those cheesy yards. Look at Jalen Hurts. He hasn't like passed the eye test once all fucking season, and he's ranked like second among fantasy quarterbacks. And it's the same deal here. Yeah, he is second, by the way. You start
Really?
yeah, Jalen
Wow.
Hurts second among fantasy quarterbacks, and you watch the Eagles, and it's like, oh, he ran out of bounds for 2 yards again. His line for last game, 12 of 26 for 115 yards. He put up 25 points, Aaron, and he
Yeah,
has
for two
games like
rushing
that,
touchdowns.
right? Because
Crazy.
he gets it out on the ground, and like Sirianni's the Wonder Bread Wop can't figure out how to get this guy the ball in space. He can't figure out how to dial in creative play calls, give it to Sanders an appropriate amount to open it up for Hurts. The Eagles have a lot more talent than a lot of people give them credit for. That fucking goofball Guinea Siriannis is fucking up everything that he has and really underutilizing the talent that he has. The Eagles should be way more of a threat to Dallas than they are. As it stands,
Yep,
they're a laughing stock. But
I agree.
to
Yeah.
to conclude my thought on the Giants, why are you starting Danny Dimes? It's because you know he can like get you these goofy 25-point cheese games with his legs. If you look at the
Yep.
Giants offense, it's an atrocity. Jason Garrett calling tepid plays. They're bottom 3 in fucking long plays, third down conversion, red zone percentage. Like big first down plays, like all the fucking offensive stats that matter, like the Giants are bottom fiving them. So
Yeah.
you're starting Danny Jones like, oh, he's going to run a lot. You're almost like doing the opposite of discount double points when you do the Galladay start. Because the idea with discount double points, like if I had fucking staff, like I have Stafford this year, right? If I also had Cup, that's an
Yep.
offense that throws a lot. Cup is like guaranteed to get a lot of targets. It's gonna like sort of be really high swing, like big points for me if they hook up and score. But even if they don't, Cup is still gonna get a lot of balls thrown his way. With Daniel Jones,
Exactly.
it's not like that. You're literally hoping
Nope.
like it's a sloppy game and he reels off like a couple long fucking 20-yard runs and his final line is like 225 yards passing, 100 yards rushing, and fucking a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown and hope to God he doesn't
Yep.
turn it over. So when you start Galladay, you're doing like contrasting win conditions. You're saying like I hope Danny Dimes throws it a lot. I hope the Giants are playing from way behind and throwing in effectively. It's like you almost hope they play a close game and Jones does a lot of running. So you weirdly you can't have them both. Like you like for it's bad because of the same reason discount you think discount double points is bad, but it's also bad for the opposite reason that some people think discount double points is good. So that just
Yeah,
fucking completely floored me to see that.
I agree.
Anyway, we can do the final game, which was you defeating Cam. I'm gonna go refill my water. I want you to talk for a droopy 30, about 30 seconds, not minutes, lol. Give me 30 seconds on this matchup and tell me what it felt like to beat a guy that a mere 3 weeks ago was predicted as a playoff lock by Spencer, the numbers man himself.
I think like Spencer had a good point in looking through his team. I mean, you're supposed to have the number one defense of the Rams, right? You have a really good kicker with Justin Tucker, who didn't have to do anything against Indianapolis because they did 2 point conversions all week or all day. And like you have some decent guys in here, besides the top three, right? Like Dak Prescott gonna put up points, and you would think that he probably would have put up like 40 against the Giants, but didn't really. I don't know. Just the points in fantasy are so crazy with the rushing touchdowns being worth so much. Like if you compare Dak Prescott's performance against Jalen Hurts' performance this week, he threw for over 150 more yards than him and two more passing touchdowns. But just because he didn't have any rush TDs, like he had literally less points. It's actually crazy to see all this stuff and see like the amount of points you get. I know he had an interception and a fumble, but it's the same thing. Not Harris for I guess the Patriots.
Yeah.
Probably not the greatest start, but he's played him against Houston, so you would expect him to get at least a touchdown. Uh, Kenneth Gainwell as a backup, it's just not going to work out for him really. Like I know he had Montgomery and he went out, but he should have been active on the waiver wire to pick up Williams when he knew that was happening.
Well, and Cook was out
Luckily for
too.
me, like I got them too.
He has Cook out
I didn't
too.
even realize he had Cook. Okay.
Yeah, and you have to remember that this is an offense led by a man who calls offensive plays from an Olive Garden menu. And very few of them include Miles Sanders, who's very talented in the offense. So the idea that Kenneth Gainwell is going to get any sort of major looks is laughable. I know he
Yeah.
queefed his way into the end zone, so he got some slurp pickups, but no, this guy's a disgrace. And if they're not going to run with Sanders like they should, they're not going to run with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Cameron has a good team, but I don't really think how Spencer thought he was going to be a playoff team. If he said that, I'm not entirely sure, but Cameron's so negligent in his management. It's never going to work out. Like he has to be a little bit, just a tiny bit involved. Like I mean, there's the meme of Ben not caring is taken to the extreme by Cameron of him not caring a single bit.
Part of the Ben not caring meme is funny because he clearly does care, on some level.
Oh yeah,
Whereas,
of course.
with Cam, it's just he, if not for the fantasy league, he'd be permanently AFK and unreachable by anyone. So
Yeah.
it loses its comedic gravitas when it's yeah, you're right. Cam doesn't care, and he also basically for all intents and purposes doesn't care about much else relative to us.
Yeah, I mean it's just sad that Cameron he's literally the worst owner in the entire league, and it's crazy how good his sister is at managing a team. Like when none of us actually talk to her and or know anything about her, but
She's certainly
we
not
just
getting her
realize
tips
like
from Cameron.
no, for sure. I mean and even Clapfor has improved significantly over the past few years, right? But Cameron has been on a maybe not even on a decline because he's just been so bad. So he's just been steadily bad.
I think Clapfor's been about the same, but I think what's so irritating about Cam is he's always the main voice and not wanting to bump up the buy-in, and it's he's always the first one to start inactives too. They're
Yep.
mutually exclusive. If you're the guy
Yep.
fucking it up and starting people that have been declared out for 5 days, you can't be the one saying oh no, we can't increase the buy-in because it's yo, Ben doesn't care. Well, shit, Cam is the one who blatantly has his head in his crap box and is start at the last regular season at the end of last year. It was a fucking 3 or 4 way tie for a playoff spot going into the last week, and like I needed Cam to beat Lily and I needed to win, Cam's fucking starting inactive people in a game that has
Oh yeah,
significant
yeah, I
playoff
remember that.
implications. And I lost anyway, so it didn't matter, but that's just like that's a joke. Like that is a
Yep.
complete joke. Like we get that you don't give enough of a shit to even go 500 once by accident, but don't fuck it up for the rest of us.
Yeah.
All right, we can move on to previewing.
Yeah, I can't believe Tampa Bay had another Thursday game. Like
They love that shit. Tampa and fucking
crazy.
Green Bay on Thursdays and Mondays. So let's start
Yeah.
with you versus No Fried, who everyone knows you not only revere like a lover but regard as a god. He's got
I've always thought No Fry was pretty talented. I mean, he going back to the thing, it looks like he wasn't as talented as I remember him, but I do know that he has won my the old division a lot, and has always put up significantly more resistance than Ben and Cameron to me
pretty
throughout the year.
talented. You
So,
called him the Bill Belichick of fantasy football, Ramp.
I definitely did not call you that and tell him that.
Well, then you know what? Then that makes fucking Cameron the Jets, doesn't it? I think the analogy now fits. That makes you the man
I might be
genius. That's perfect. You're the Eric Mangini of fantasy football, Aaron.
Yeah, that that might actually make sense.
Talk about a guy whose flash was quick to hit the pan, like the man
True.
genius. Like what the hell is he doing now? So
Who
Aaron
knows?
Aaron Jones and Gaskin. I think that Aaron Jones is due to have a big week along with Rodgers. Chicago's terrible. They're going with Fields full time, who's fucking clueless and will never develop. Fields is on the same level of Haskins and Washington a couple of 3 years ago. This is a guy who very clearly is like a college quarterback, and I don't ever expect him to take that extra step or ever look good on a professional level.
I don't want to like sell him short yet because he is with the Bears and Matt Nagy or whoever the hell is calling the shots up there. Like those guys are idiots. Like they're just idiots. They can't game plan around their quarterback. They can't even like commit to a quarterback. It was
Well, I don't
just
know.
not intelligent over there.
I don't know about the commitment thing, because like they did the classic bit where they have a veteran and a rookie, and the rookie's clearly
Mm.
not ready. So like and they did the thing where they said we're gonna start with the veteran and then go to the rookie whenever the fucking veteran sucks. And just like
Hmm.
that classic move, they fucking go to the rookie within the first 6 games. And let me tell you why they do that move and why teams do that and why it's popular. Because if you start with the rookie and he looks like a rookie, idiot fans are going to start calling for his head. You don't want like idiot
Yep.
fans to call for the head of your fucking just drafted franchise quarterback. So you start the established guy like your Rex Grossman, your Jay Cutler, your motherfucking Fitzmagic. And then when that guy like has a few shitter games or gets hurt, then like everyone's pissed off and wants him gone because they've been watching shit football for 5 years. Then the new guy comes in and they're all high, and because they've been seeing a shit product for the last 5 weeks, they go, well, this is about as shit like we were watching before, but this guy's young, like he can
Hey,
improve
this
a
is a new
lot.
guy.
We just drafted him, so like that's why teams like they're like we have Red Rocket and Fields, and it's like they're both horrible, and it's like they really like a lot of times I swear to God, teams when they have a real young rookie like that and like an established washed vet, they will pick who they want to start based on like fan bitching and like macroing the bitching and managing the expectations as opposed to like who can fucking throw a sharper cross route or read defenses pre-snap. Like I swear to God, that's just like a classic move. Like rookie
Yeah.
quarter, like there was always that meme of like, well, they're gonna take even though they have an established quarterback, they're gonna take the quarterback in the draft and let him hold the clipboard like Aaron Rodgers. Like that was something everybody liked. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre fucking hated each other and still don't like each other, and that they like regarded that whole era as like a joke. Like Rodgers was ready to get over it, get like the starting job, and have people stop talking about Brett fucking Favre. And Favre thought he was being stabbed in the back, and everyone like just references that like it was some great thing.
Yeah, that's
The,
true.
the same people who forgot the sort of weapons that Rodgers had whenever he took over, fucking Greg Jennings and Donald Driver,
Yeah.
All that shit is just like memory hold by people. It's
Oh,
like,
and the tight end,
yes,
uh,
n-
what's his name?
the one after Bubba Franks. I do remember who you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, but like it's crazy. Like you look at like the timeline of some people's view of the Green Bay Packers, and it's like one Super Bowl, and then like from the year after to now, it's like either like made NFC Championship or we're screwed by bad reffing out of NFC Championship. The
Yep.
Packers have got to have some of the most delusional, insufferable fans in the entire NFL and in all of sports. Because what's so annoying about them specifically is they get all the calls and they complain about getting screwed so much. If you look at all the teams in the NFL, no fucking team over the last 10 years has been more coddled and set
Well,
up
the
by the league
Patriots.
to do well. Well, the Patriots were actually good and were like doing duplicitous things on their own. Like I don't actually think like the meme of like Tom Brady always gets the roughing calls. Like not really. I
True.
haven't actually found that to be the case. And like the Patriots, like a lot of their success, but it was almost all Brady, and like Belichick was good and like has a good defensive mind, and they were also doing some shady shit organization wise. But if you look at
Yeah.
just the calls in the games of like that 2014 fucking Cowboys versus Packers and the catch, and
Yep.
the last season's Packers game where they were behind and they were getting like 15-yard penalties for them, basically like Dick Bavetta calls so they could try to come back in the game. Like I just cannot stand like Packers faithful, all of them couldn't fucking tell you who some of these old school Packers were. They've never heard of Bart Starr. They've never heard of Tom Landry. Just kidding. Because Tom Landry, of course, was everyone's favorite cowboy. And
Well,
the
yeah.
Cowboys, loved by Hank Hill and you, are poised to take on the Packers at some point in the playoffs this year. Vince Lombardi is, of course, the name that I wanted to go for originally, but I had to keep you on your
Yeah.
toes there and bring up the fedora. So, what are your thoughts on this fucking matchup, your matchup with Lasso? We talked about it a little, but what's going to be the X factor?
I honestly feel like pretty unsure about it. I think like based on the Chargers production and like how things are gonna go, Justin Herbert's either gonna put up about 40 points or he's gonna put up about 10. And I'm really scared about that. I don't feel very confident going into this game, honestly. Looking at the guys that he has and who they're going up against, like Aaron Rodgers, like you said, going against Chicago. Like the Henderson guy for the Rams going against the Giants.
Be
Like
quiet,
dude,
Austin.
I expect both of his running backs to go for like 20 each easily. The only one that I'm like actually kind of confident that won't do that well is Brandon Cooks for Houston. Everybody else though, I'm afraid might have incredible games. And I'm like almost scared that Mark might put up like 180 points on me.
Well, I don't think Zach Moss is going to have a great game, but across the board, like Cooper Cup, 15 plus, Kelsey, 12 plus, Harris against the Seattle team, with they're going to be ahead of all game with no fucking quarterback, like he's due for a 13 plus. Uh,
Yeah,
Vegas's kicker versus Denver. That's a good matchup. The Colts against Inept Houston. You're going to really struggle here just because he has a lot of
yeah,
matchup advantages on you.
yeah. I mean, and he even has like Julio Jones on the bench who could be switched in, but I mean they're playing against Buffalo, since may not be the best idea. It's just like I just don't have a good matchup this week, unfortunately. Um,
Yeah,
just looking at other
The
things.
Gaskin one is okay, but you're sitting there sort of with your dick in your hand with a guy who, like I said, like these guys who have these huge pop-off weeks in between, like the cancer weeks. You would
Yeah,
almost rather them fucking never have the big game because you're gonna start this guy now, whether it be because of your bye week trouble or injury trouble, whatever. But like, he's not gonna score 2 touchdowns next week. You know that. Like,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, these guys are brutal to have on a fantasy team. They're fantasy poison. But I
Hmm.
mean, if you're looking at Miami's schedule and you're trying to figure out when they're gonna play from ahead, you've got to think the fucking Jacksonville game might be one of those. You really need CD Lamb to have a 15 plus point game. The Cowboys have been great, but CD's not really getting those huge numbers a lot of people expected. This is a guy that you took in the third round. What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
CD so far this year as the Cowboys?
I mean, like on the eye test, watching him, I think he's still amazing. But it looks like the Cowboys' offense with this establishment of the running game has really kind of impacted the receiving core. And I mean, the emergence of Ced Wilson and the emergence of the two tight ends that are both doing well. Like it's almost like Kansas City's like wide receiving core.
So who's Tyreek Hill? CD?
I mean, I would say probably, but he's not going to have that 40-point game because the Cowboys just spread it out too much. Like, I mean, nobody's really Tyreek Hill, but
I
that's why
do
it's almost like that.
I do like the point that you were making about the fact that they're starting to run and it's completely shifted, not just one weapon. Like let's just say you have a big weapon like I have Keenan Allen, and it's like, oh
Hmm.
well, Williams is getting all the touchdowns, and it's like that really just has all the passing touchdowns. That really just like affects Allen like more than it
Hmm.
affects everyone else significantly, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like this, it's like it doesn't really have anything to do with Michael Gallup getting hurt. It has to do with them playing a proper offense. You have the things that you mentioned with the tight ends and Wilson. You also have young Tony Pollard. And they're like, if
Yep.
you were to just make like a little fucking pie graph of like rush plays and then pass plays, the fucking graph would have shifted tremendously over to way more rushes this season as opposed to last. And I think
Yep.
that the fact that CD has decreased fantasy production numbers actually means the Cowboys offense is healthy. It's a sign of the Cowboys offense being more healthy and balanced. So even though it's not great
Yeah.
for fantasy, I think that it shows that the Cowboys aren't like moronically just trying to air it out. I think that like telling Dak like, all right, we're gonna run a Texas Tech style air raid offense. Good luck, have fun. Like that doesn't match his skill set. They need to be
Yeah.
running.
Well, I mean, I think Dak has improved a lot this year, but I think the reason he's looked so much improved is because he hasn't had the entire game on his shoulders every
Yeah.
week.
I don't think he's looked improved. I think he's looked like 2016 Dak. Like he looks just like Dak did in his rookie year when they were running a lot and they weren't asking him to carry. Like efficient, not fucking up a lot, like solid.
I mean, that's good. That's all you
Yeah.
really need, though,
It
right?
is an
Like,
it is an
I
improvement
mean,
from
Joe
last
Flacco run a
year.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you think about these guys who have won the Super Bowl, like with that are not like big name quarterbacks like Joe Flacco. Like all Joe Flacco did that year was not fuck up, right? It's
Yeah.
like the same thing with the Nick Foles and stuff. Like Nick Foles just didn't have to fuck up. His defense carried him. Like all they needed to do is score like a tiny bit. Like it wasn't. It's not necessarily that you have to have an amazing quarterback to win a Super Bowl anymore. Or it's never really been like that. It's just that you need the solid defense and you need like above average play from your offense to win the game.
Well, you
But the
need
Cowboys' offense is really good and their defense is above average right now, which is good.
what you need is the quarterback to work cohesively with the rest of his team. You don't necessarily need a star hard carry quarterback, but you do need a
Hmm.
quarterback being used in proper roles and things that fit his strengths. For instance, the Eagles quarterback, Jalen Hurts, he's probably like a six. He's probably like a 6.5 to 7.5 out of 10 level guy, and on the field he looks like a fucking 4 out of 10 or 5 out of 10 guy because the Wonder Bread Wop Sirianni has no idea how to use him, calls a bunch of tepid draws, a bunch of like
Hmm.
dumbass fucking quarterback sweeps to the outside, not enough bootlegs, not enough tight end stuff, doesn't run enough. This guy's a fucking clueless dunce. This guy makes Paulie Gualtieri from The Sopranos look like a fucking scheming genius. I mean, Nick Sirianni is wasting his talent, and the whole point being that if you look at the Eagles' offense and how many talented weapons it has, and the Cowboys' offense, yeah, the Cowboys are better, but it's not like 8 out of 10 compared to 4 out of 10. It's like 6.5 out of 10 compared to 8 out of 10. But it's how you use the weapons. Last season,
Yeah.
even before Dak got hurt, what do we see? The run being abandoned early. Zeke Elliott quitting. Cowboys fall behind
Yep.
early due to shit defense and no ball control. Dak forced to pass 60 times. Dak passes against prevent defense for an entire quarter, mounts 400 yards. Idiot fans lap
Yep.
it up. Like, just because
Yep.
he got more passing yards doesn't mean that it was better, because the build order they were using was not really conducive to the pieces they had on their team, and it had the cascading effect of fucking up the defense and the run game. Like, that's why the run is so important for the Cowboys, like I said earlier, is if you don't have the run working on some teams, like the great teams like the '07 Patriots, it don't matter. They'll air it out, and like their defense can still make stops even if they have to play a lot. With the Cowboys, you lose the run, you lose Dak, you lose time of possession, you ask your defense to do too much. The Cowboys defense didn't become god tier overnight. Let's be clear. It's not god tier now. This is a defense that has come up with big turnovers when it mattered, and probably 75% of it is because of Diggs. He's a true hard carry, and in general, this is a team that is not going to be able to stand up to a lethal top tier assault like of the Cardinals or Baltimore when they're cooking, or something to that extent, the Chiefs. So don't think that the Cowboys have a great defense just because they've looked better, they've forced turnovers. And in general, that's why I'm still sort of hesitant to throw everything behind the Cowboys and get so excited, because look at the schedule, you look at their current record, holy shit, they're a lock for the division. But you start looking at the like other top teams in the NFC, they don't actually like grade out that well to a lot of those teams. But just to conclude my thought, I really enjoy how Moore and McCarthy are using the offense this season. It looks as though they finally fucking found their stride, and even though the schedule is incredibly soft, it looks like they at least understand the fucking win conditions of the pieces they have, which it looked like they had no fucking clue last year. So that's great.
Yeah.
Great for
I
Cowboys
mean,
Nation.
I think you're selling the defense a little short. I think that the emergence of getting Micah Parsons and having him go after like actually getting after quarterbacks and getting rushing, and
He's
our whole defensive line, even without Demarcus Lawrence, has been impressive, honestly, in
Gregory
terms
and
of getting key
Parsons
quarterback.
have both been good. You're right on that.
Yeah.
Gregory and Parsons have both been good too.
And even our safeties and cornerbacks are just not allowing a lot of deep ball threats that used to happen a lot. We're like not allowing people to get behind us, and if we give up a couple of these little 10-yard in routes, like hey, so be it. As long as we're not giving up that deep ball, you know.
Right, and I said it
I think it's
before.
just been impressive.
It has been. I mean, when you watch the sewer that was the last season Cowboys
Oh
defense,
yeah,
I mean
yeah,
Marone, like it was like a fucking scout team. Like anything was better. But it's all about the turnover. Like a lot of Cowboys fans, they're almost so happy, and had to see so much shit last year that now whenever they see anything
true.
like one turnover, it's like, oh, we're the '86 Bears. I'm just saying, like, tamper your expectations down a little. Most of this is predicated off of turnovers, and Diggs specifically. The turnovers stop happening, the defense is going to look pretty substandard again pretty fast. That secondary minus Diggs is pretty goddamn weak and is afraid to hit. I think having Micah Parsons and Diggs come into their own in the NFL, one thing that I really notice is the hitting. Last season, the Cowboys looked afraid to hit, the secondary especially. Now, they're really not afraid to lay out dudes. And whenever you have the threat of hearing footsteps as a receiver, you don't necessarily get to run your routes with the same sharpness. You don't have that fearless
Agreed.
attitude when you come over the middle. And now that the Cowboys aren't trying to ankle tackle everyone, that actually has a small psychological effect in forcing turnovers in other ways that people don't really necessarily think about. Because even though you can't really hit people real hard when they come over the middle anymore, there is definitely that humanistic nature of hearing footsteps coming. I remember hearing this anecdote from the great Michael Irvin, and he was talking about running crossing routes over the middle, like back in the fucking
Yeah.
90s NFL when like linebackers would just like fucking erase you like right when you were getting the ball. And
Yeah.
he said, Michael, when you're running this cross route, son, you better catch this one. You're going straight back to the ghetto. That's how he would like pump himself up and like try to get over the fear of like knowing he was gonna get fucking obliterated as soon as he got the ball.
Yeah.
Was like told himself he was gonna have to go back to the ghetto, which I fucking love that story. So who are you gonna predict in this one? I'm feeling like
Nah,
it's
I think Mark's gonna beat me.
Yeah,
But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that he has some stinkers on his team and I do okay.
I'm going 110 to 89 mark.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if I even put up 80, 85, honestly.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can upset him.
Hopefully, that'd be nice.
Here we have Cam, who Spencer boldly predicted to go into the playoffs, sitting at 1-4. Usually around like week 6 or 7, I title one of these episodes "Cam Laps." It usually takes longer because at one point in the season he'll be like 3-2, maybe even 3-1, and then like at week 8 he'll be 3-5. But now it's like he Cam lapsed after one fucking week. One
Bro, he
week.
may as well just put everybody on the bench. He literally didn't start Dalvin Cook this week. What in the hell?
Well, I
I mean,
think
he can still put him in, but like Jesus.
Snickers might be able to satisfy Cook into the starting lineup at tomorrow at 11:55, and let's hope that that's the case because without that, AB is essentially granted a walkover. Gainwell locked in 1, which was ironically like the same, which was my career rushing total
Not
as
even one. Point
a
one.
Pee-wee player. No, 1 yard, not 1 point, 1 yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is not even a running yard; it's a receiving yard.
So he caught one of Jalen Hurts' dump offs. Like
Oh my god!
if you watch Philly like on a week to week basis, it is fucking frustrating. It's like watching the goddamn Philadelphia Phillies all over again. I can't get away from these frustrating Philly teams. And I'm to the point now where like Sanders, even though he's really good, gets so few looks that I was trying to move him this other week. I was offering Sanders and a receiver for a couple of 3 people on
Yeah,
like a running back on different
I
squads.
remember I got a trade from you, so
What do you remember the details? It was
no,
like
I don't.
okay, well we can just move on then. So here, Cam again. I mean Cam, in the true spirit of like a casual Cowboy fan, he thinks Dak is God. Like you like Dak. Cam loves Dak. Like
Oh, God.
Cam has Dak so much in fantasy, you would think we played in one of those corny keeper leagues that nobody likes. And I think,
Yeah.
how do you
Uh,
think the Cowboys are going to do against New England? Because
I think they're gonna be fine.
everyone has this as a big scary game. Belichick's going to strangle Dak with this hoodie. He's going to take the parts of his hoodie that he's wearing and the parts of Zeke's belly shirt and combine them into like a DBZ style fusion of a super piece of clothing. He's going to wear the cutoff as a fucking do-rag and beat Dallas by 50. I mean, some people, the ideas that they have about this game are absurd. I have Dallas winning by a fucking 6-point spread. What do you think?
I think Dallas is gonna be fine. I don't have any kind of. I like really don't have that much of emotions in this game. I think it'll be over pretty quickly. It'll be a good game that the Cowboys will just come out of winning. I won't. I would be shocked if the Patriots come out there and kick Dallas's ass.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't even think this game's like needs to even be talked about. Like, Austin's gonna win. Like, he's just gonna win.
Austin will win. To touch on a couple things before we move on, he picked up Booker, who's going to start in place of Saquon. But
Yep.
this is one of those guys where it's like a quote-unquote obvious pickup because he's going to get the workload. And Austin should have picked him up. It was a good move, but facing the Rams defense, you're on a shit offense. Your quarterback got banged up last week. Like how many points are you honestly expecting from Booker here?
Well, it's probably sounding. If the quarterback's all banged up, I mean, it sounds like they're gonna have to try to establish the run at least because they're not gonna give long neck Mike Glennon the ball 45 times to throw it.
They're also not
They're
going to
try
be.
to run.
They're also not going to be in the red zone at all. They're playing
You're
LA.
right. I mean, they
They're just not
honestly
going to
might.
score.
They may not make it past the 50 one time. Like
I feel like this is it's gonna be like 70-35 LA. What the hell is the spread on this game? It's got to be huge. There's no way the Giants even compete.
I don't know. Honestly,
That's a Spencer
this,
question.
Yeah, this might be I'm just gonna say I'm happy for AB that he's only starting one Giants player.
Well, and
But
look,
the fact that he still has 2 rostered,
He's
just get rid of one of them.
he's
Please.
got Claypool.
Oh, he has 3. rostered. Oh my God, have mercy.
Hey, he's got Claypool in the lineup finally.
Yep.
Sanders popped off last week. I think Buffalo looks good in Tennessee. This has all the makings of an AB victory. Singletary on the bench. AB's put his cuteness away. This is like
Yep.
one of those 3 foot putts, like or 3 inch putts, 3 inch putts rather, like one of those chip ins that you just do with one fucking hand. This is
Yep.
like a 3 fucking inch putt for birdie this game, with Gainwell already locked in for one. So hopefully
Yep.
AB takes that down. I want to see him competitive going into the stretch drive and not like broken and sad. This is a
Yep.
really, really good game. Ben, the king of funny, DUIs in Colorado, facing off against the defending champ, the Gouch. And I just want to know,
Yeah.
other than these three droopy cues here, what stands out to you about this game, Ramp?
I think the matchups stand out pretty hard. I think that Ben has a really good chance to beat Christian here. Because you got Kyler Murray going into Cleveland, who has, like, even though they had a barn burner against the Chargers last week, I think they have a pretty good chance of stopping Kyler Murray from getting a ton of points this week. I think that Buffalo's defense will stop Derrick Henry. I think like even the Kansas City defense will stop the Washington offense, who's not very good. Baltimore's defense is good against Mike Williams, who's already questionable. Um, I do think that Jamar Chase will have a good game against Detroit, and probably Robert Tonyan might get a tutty against Chicago. But like with Chris Godwin already locking in 4 points, I think the King is in trouble this week.
Okay, that's an excellent little response, but I just want to ask you about Robert Tonyan. This is a guy that Spencer and I had being overdrafted and reached for, and he's had 3 really sucky weeks back to back, failing to break a single point. Do you think this guy will finish inside or outside of the top 10 for tight ends? It's a pretty weak
Outside.
field. Outside, okay.
Yeah, I think that he doesn't really get all that many targets, but like every once in a while, like if the Packers do need him, he's always there. And he's more of a like as far as I've seen from him, he's more of a blocking tight end, which really sets up for Aaron Jones a lot. But it's just he's a good player. Like I don't want to sell him short, but he's just not necessarily a fantasy god.
Okay. I like Jamar Chase because this is a guy who gets a surprisingly high amount of targets. Him and Higgins both are on what is quickly becoming an above average solid little Browns or Bengals passing attack rather. I think it sucks for like the Joe Mixon users that for years they were on like a very average offense where Mixon got 25 carries, AJ Green got 15 targets. It was like a very consistent like like 8 and 8 type thing. And now this season, it's like Chase and Higgins are having crazy games, and Mixon not really getting as much work. And I feel like if you drafted Mixon, the whole reason you did it was for the floor. And this ceiling, or this,
Yeah.
excuse me, this year it's not really working out so well.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a hot take. I think that Cincinnati is gonna go down to Detroit this week.
Okay, how come?
I think they're gonna lose. I think this Detroit has just been so like devastated by these last second field goals the past like what three weeks in a row almost. I think it is 3 weeks in a row between Baltimore, the Packers, and the Vikings.
Yeah, the Baltimore one was particularly hilarious.
Well, I mean the if you watched the Green Bay game last week, that was the Green Bay Bengals game last week. That was probably the worst game I've ever seen in terms
Oh,
of kicking, and
total shit show.
just
When the
so bad.
when the Packers kicker Crosby lined up for that fucking final one, like for the win after he had missed multiple, I was hoping so fucking bad he would miss. Just because of the comedic effect, like how jokish that would be.
If he might have missed and had a heart attack on the field, bro. That man had the full head of gray hair, cracking me up. But
That would have
yeah, I mean,
that would have been one of those
I,
released on Monday moments.
but man, if you've watched Detroit, man, they've actually looked pretty decent, and it's just been so heartbreaking to watch them. Like as somebody who doesn't actually care about Detroit, but is like kind of liking the storyline about around like Dan Campbell and like their whole team in general, like. It's just heartbreaking to watch them lose because their owner refuses to pay freaking Calvin Johnson. Everybody knows it's a curse. Just do it. Just pay him. It's only $1 million, man.
Well, I think the real tragic thing about the Megatron thing was that like he was so insanely talented and so much better than everyone else that not only was he taken from us in his prime, basically just because Detroit was such a terrible shithole, he was tired of playing there. It had less to do with the money than a lot of people think. A lot of it was just like the black pilling nature of being a fucking lifelong Lion, which is a big reason why I was so happy when Stafford got fucking moved to the Rams. This was a Dallas kid that had his dick broken off in Detroit year after year after year, finally deserved a shot with a real team and a real offensive coordinator. Megatron never got that. And to me, I don't think that we've seen a receiver as spectacular as Megatron since he retired. Like, which names would you even offer up? Julio Jones? Jones is
Yeah.
great, he's fast, but he doesn't have the same sort of, like,
Well,
ridiculous,
he's not as
domineering
dominant.
place. And, like, Mike
Yeah.
Evans, like, similar build, sure. Like, nearly as good as with the deep ball or overall, no. It's just like no one.
Like the analogy that I like to make this to is like seeing Megatron in his prime reminds me of Shaq in his prime. Like nobody was even close.
Yeah. And
And like there have been some flash in the pans since. Like you got your like Anthony Davises now, and you've had a few different guys that are like that. But like it's not Shaq. It's not the way that Shaq dominated the league.
right. To me, Megatron was the last great receiver of that, like, to me, what was the greatest era of receivers starting in 2000, or like 98 if you want to be cute. T.O., Randy Moss, Ocho Cinco, Joe.
Yeah.
You can even throw like Joe Horn and Steve Smith in there on some level. This,
Marvin Harrison.
yes, Reggie Wayne. These were like a,
Yep.
a special level of receiver that we don't really see anymore, and not just talent-wise on the field, but you want to talk about
Toughness.
not just toughness, but style and panache
Oh, true.
and
Yeah.
the ability. Like Terrell Owens and Ocho Cinco, are you kidding me? These are like the reason that they invented the showboating rules that nobody liked, that they ended up getting rid of because it was like Terrell Owens was gonna fucking catch a touchdown, and it was like, what is he gonna do?
He
Then
was gonna come out there and
yeah,
do
stand
something
on the
wild on the
star,
star.
shove the popcorn in his face, pull his fucking Sharpie out of his sock and sign the ball and give it to a fan. Like people love seeing that shit. Or like Chad Johnson's like Chad Johnson had a list of all the other teams' premier corners that they played, and like he had it hit, like he had this thing taped up in his locker, and each time he would like have a good game and score, and he would like X their name out in his little like schedule.
Love it.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like you just don't see that anymore. Megatron to me was like the last bastion of that.
Yep.
People will float the name Antonio Brown, but that one's he has the talent,
Yeah.
and you see him now, but it's just not all the way there. He doesn't like, yeah, he's flashy, but it's like it's almost like he's flashy for the sake of being flashy.
Well, he's just not in that same generation, you know. Like
Yeah, no,
it's
that's
a
a
new
good point
generation of
too.
guys, but yeah.
That's a good point too.
But so let's finish this out here because we got a few more games to go and we've been on here for a while. So
Yeah,
I think Ben's gonna hand Christian his second loss of the year, and I think Christian's gonna be real salty about it. And he's not gonna like me saying this on fantasy on the TWIF podcast, but I'm gonna say it anyways.
I'm actually going to give. I think I'll give the Gouch the edge. I think that it's going to be a very close, exciting game. I think that Tanyan will actually get 5 or more, and I think it's going to be a 115 to 110 affair in favor of the Gouch.
I'm gonna give it to Ben, like I said, and I think it's about 110 to 95.
Okay. Here we have 2-3-2 teams badly in need of a win. Weston and Lilly. Oh, Weston getting cute, going with Tyler Heineke. I guess if the Kansas City defense is actually as bad as you say it is, then this is not that bad of a move. What say you?
We can look it up, but I'm pretty sure the Chiefs' defense is like
They're bottom
close
five
to
in
32nd.
they're bottom
Yeah,
five
like
in
in
fantasy
everything.
points.
It's been like abysmal how bad they are.
Well, I'm not saying
I
you have to quantify. Like I agree with you,
Yeah.
their defense is bad. I'm just saying, is it bad enough for Heineke to be a good start? Like, what do you think about that? Because he's Wilson hurt, obviously. He's not going to drop.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is a good. I think that's a good call. Heineke's actually been showing some flashes in the pan, and like with Scary Terry, like you never really know how well he's gonna do. But I think Kansas City's defense has been so bad that Heineke could have a really good, really good game.
I think he'll punch in 15.
I'm kind of concerned that he's not starting Adam Thielen this week.
Yeah, I
Maybe
saw
maybe
that.
that'll change.
I saw that.
Like Carolina, like if you look at what happened with Carolina last week to the Eagles, like
Yeah, Carolina
you would
looks
think he would
bad.
start them.
They lost to the Eagles. They lost to the Cowboys. They look uninspired. Big
Yeah.
loss with J.C. Horn going down a few weeks ago. Their defense really hasn't recovered. That was a rookie that was making a big impact. And overall, like offensively, without McCaffrey, they're a bottom 10 offense. And they
Well, they
really,
did just get that Patriots cornerback, but oh no, he's on IR still too. Never mind.
well, you have to remember
You're
with
right.
the Panthers were like an above average team. And they lost like
Hmm.
their best rookie and their best player. So then they go to sort of like an average to below average team. Not high at all on Carolina. I sort of put them in the same like middling non-playoff threat but not shit either spot that I put Minnesota in. Really disappointing game from Darnold last week. You know, it's one thing to have a couple interceptions, especially if one's tipped, but that final play he had was like pure shit for brains. I'm seeing ghosts with Galil
Yeah.
silenced. Like that was
Oh yeah.
fucking abysmal.
I was watching it. It was disappointing as hell. I think this is a very important game for Carolina though, because I think that the wild card will come out of the NFC South or the NFC North, and I think the Vikings are a threat for that.
Definitely. And they need to win to stop the bleeding, especially. Like,
Yep.
this is not a team that can afford to give away a bunch of, like, dumb, middling losses because they're really not that good. They're not bad, but they're not really good either.
So I'm assuming Lilly will change out Nick Chubb since he's out. Hopefully Kareem Hunt's not out, but I'm just trying to see like
She
if
has
she has
McKinnon.
McKinnon who could do really well against.
Well,
Wait,
remember,
McKinnon's on Kansas City?
Edwards-Helaire got hurt. Remember, so this is actually decent.
Okay.
But the
All
Darrell
right.
Williams
Yeah,
is.
that could work out pretty well.
I think Darrell Williams is going to be the guy, but the point is she has fucking options, right? She finally
Yeah.
benched Aguilar, thank God, which was just like long
Yeah.
overdue.
Agreed. I think Lilly has a good shot of putting up some points, but I do think that Weston will edge her out this week.
I agree. Too many like questions on Lily's side for me to feel comfortable about picking her.
Yeah, I think Stephon Diggs might have like a 35-point game. Honestly, that
Wow.
Tennessee secondary is so bad. It's actually one of the worst in the league. It's so bad.
Man,
So
looking at
I'm gonna.
looking at this again, I feel like this is going to be like a really low scoring game.
I think it might be for sure. It's just looking at it is just very much like, who do the touches go to? Because say Cole Beasley gets more touches than Stephon Diggs, then like Lily wins the game basically.
I'm going
But I
Weston
think
85, Lily 80.
I'm gonna go Weston 97 and like Lily like 85 probably somewhere in there.
Okay. We have the epic rivalry between Jackson and Clapfor. Jalen Hurts already put up 25 despite losing and passing for 115 yards. Classic Jalen
Yeah, like I
Hurts.
was saying, like Jalen Hurts somehow puts up 25 with 115 passing yards. Like then you look at somebody who like with Dak, he had put up 300 passing yards last week and 3 touchdowns and only scored 20 points. Like
It would be
it's the rushing is just so heavily weighted. It's
it,
crazy.
it would be like a funny thought experiment to like talk to someone who had never like played fantasy and you watch an Eagles game with them like the whole fucking game. You watch like one like Olive Garden order after another from Sirianni come in for like 2 yards. The Eagles lose and like queef out 17, and you're like, well, fantasy games are usually like 100 to like 95. So how many points do you think Hurts got? They're like, oh, I don't know, like 5, and you're like, no, he got 25. Like that's like every game with this guy. He like fails
Yeah.
the eye test, has so many plays that go nowhere, has a lot of like his deep ball percentage is a low fucking success rate, high turnover rate. Like you watch this and it's just fucking abysmal. And then guess what? Holy crap, Aaron. he gets all these fantasy points. Jackson was right. Jackson knew what the fuck he was doing when he reached for Hurts. In our eyes, like he was right
That's
on this
crazy.
shit.
Yeah,
He was
that's crazy.
100% ahead of it. Like he knew what he was doing.
I think Jackson has some good pickups here. He's definitely playing the waiver wire really really well. Keeping up with the news. Unfortunately, his best running back, the guy who I would never have ever guessed would be number 3 in the league right now, Patterson, is on bye this week.
His best running back, I fucking clicked on McCaffrey. Yeah, this
Well,
is
I mean,
insane. Like when you,
that's a
cause,
crazy pick,
cause it's
man.
like, oh, he had that big week, and then it's like, wait a second. So he's ranked 3, and like he had all these 10 plus point production weeks, and they were giving the ball to fucking Davis, who never did anything. It's because he lines up as a receiver a lot too. But talk about a
Yeah,
steal, this guy being listed as running back.
100%. I mean, he's been killing it. Jackson honestly picked really well this year, and he's had a couple games that just didn't go his way, unfortunately. I mean, well, unfortunately, but it's always fun to see Jackson lose,
He's
even
had
though I
real
like
shit
Jackson.
injury luck too.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, you get that when you pick Christian McCaffrey, right? Like that's the thing. Like,
Well, since
I
when?
mean,
Last
Clyde
year?
Edwards-Helaire going down. Well, I
McCaffrey's
mean,
not
it's the
historically an
same thing.
injury-prone guy. Like I don't feel
Well, I
like
mean,
it.
he's only had a few. He's only had a couple, like a few years in the league, and yeah, he's been super good. But when you have a running back that runs as hard as McCaffrey does and like sacrifices his body for everything, you expect that kind of guy to get injured.
You also expect anyone in fantasy football to pick him as number 1 overall. And I know in the
I
draft
agree.
supercut you were like floating the idea that maybe it's Henry, and in retrospect
Hmm.
maybe it should have been. But McCaffrey is such a big part of the Panthers offense, gets so many pass looks, gets so many run looks,
Yeah.
and in general is god tier and didn't really ever get hurt until last year. I don't think it's really fair to consider him like injury prone. Like, I feel like you have to suffer like big injuries for multiple years to be injury prone. Whereas like yes
Like
he
I
was.
just I have my thing is like if you have a knee injury, you have one of those major leg injuries that you're kind of in a spot where like that kind of thing impacts the rest of your legs like forever, like almost forever. And it's not like I don't want to say that in like a negative aspect, but it just kind of does, unfortunately. Like most of these dudes that come back from like an ACL injury or MCL injury or whatever, like they just have a little bit of problems ever since. Like not everybody has Adrian Peterson knees.
I think it's funny that like the injury happened. Everyone was worried it was going to be like 6 weeks, like last year, like really bad. Oh, my season's over. I know that
Yep.
AB actually sent fucking Jackson a trade. Adams of the Packers, the receiver, straight up for
Yep.
McCaffrey. Sort of
No
like,
way.
well, no way for who?
For AB.
So you think it's a bad trade for AB?
Well, AB needs to win now.
Yeah,
Whereas like
but on some level, it's a question of how bad is the injury. Because if he's out for 8 weeks, it's like you get all those weeks of Adams. It's probably good for the guy that receives Adams. But then after last week, it was like McCaffrey's only going to be out 1 week. It's a miracle. And then look at this shit. It's like, oh well, actually he's doubtful. Like,
yeah.
I would just be like sort of suspicious of any reports that like McCaffrey's going to bounce back in a week. I feel like people that believe that are sort of dense and were led on. Like he obviously wasn't going to be back in a week, even if that's what was reported. But anyway,
Yeah, I agree.
the only reason I went into that diatribe is because we almost had like a big impactful trade made for him where the amount of time he was going to be out would have been the defining factor on whether it was a good or bad trade. So what do you think about this matchup? Both guys are projected to finish within a fucking point one of each other.
Yeah, I kind of think the projection is a little crazy right now, especially looking at the fact that that Clap for his wide receiver 1 and flex both scored under 3 points or 3.5 points.
Yeah.
Um, like I expect Amari Cooper to do pretty well, but like so when you have Amari Cooper and Dalton Schultz, like somebody's gonna get the touches, and like we already talked about the Dallas offense, like that could be a problem. Now Washington's defense has been pretty bad this year, so Mahomes I expect to get like 30 points. Jonathan Taylor has been really good, and he's playing against the shitty Houston Texans defense, so like he might, Kyle might score a lot of points, but I really think Jackson's just gonna like run him over this week,
Y-
even with Metcalf catching from some other guy, and but like it just looks like Jackson has a good matchup across the board, though.
Yeah, I agree. I would also favor Jackson. I think he's done a great job of basically trying to mitigate his injury troubles. Because a lot of guys, they get ravaged with injuries like this, they're basically done. Like, that's
Yeah,
one thing.
agreed.
You look at Jackson last year, this guy was completely dead and down and out. He used exceptional management skill as well as an incredible amount of determination to vault himself all the way to the goddamn finals. Like, there are
Yeah,
probably 50% of fantasy owners, they have a start like this, like for first like four running backs go down, they're gonna like cry baby and fucking like go borderline inactive. But he keeps fighting, which is a big reason why I like to play with him. And I've got him winning 100 to 92.
yeah. I think that's gonna be right around there too.
All right. So this has been a great long episode, but before we sign off, we got to do my game, which is
All
a
right,
really good game.
the
It's
Cousin
between
Bowl.
me and Spencer, and this is the only matchup that Spencer has a losing record in as far as like long-term matchups. So this is an exciting one for obvious reasons. Both of us are in sort of like the pole position and need to keep punching and doing well. Thankfully, I had
Yep.
Zach Ertz punch me in a touchdown. Goddard had COVID, so he got more looks. And hilariously, like Zach Ertz and Goddard, who I were handcuffing together, are now on different teams. So I think that's kind of actually a buff for me. But anyway, I think Tyler Lockett's value goes down because of his quarterback getting hurt, which sucks. But what jumps out to you about this matchup?
Well, I think for you, it looks like Cook is back, so he may
Yeah,
not. Madison might not do too
I'm
well.
going with Sony
Although,
Sony Michelle probably.
well, I mean, you never know. Like, are they gonna limit Cook? Like, they obviously want Cook for the long run. So, like, say Cook comes in there and they get off to an early lead, they may not play him the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Uh, but I understand what you're saying. Like, you don't want to take that risk. You might as well just play Tony Michelle. Like, he's playing against the Giants defense anyways. You might as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
the LA should play from ahead a lot, and Michelle looked pretty sharp
yeah.
last week. And in general,
Uh,
this is a sort of one of those weeks where, yeah, I'm not looking good because Barkley's declared out, and it's a big
yeah.
hole in my team, but I'm gonna have to adjust.
Yeah, I think honestly for the lack of production that Barkley's been having for you to be 3-2 right now, it's very impressive. But I honestly think that you're gonna take a loss this week against good old Spencer here. As much as I don't want that to happen, even though you're in my division.
Should I
Uh,
play OBJ? Should I find a spot for
that's
OBJ?
Hey man, I don't want to be the one that tells you to do that.
Well, whenever I ask questions like that, it's for the show. I'm not gonna like. I have my mind made up. I'm not gonna like allow you to influence me. I just want to know
Yeah.
like the Aaron take. Like McLaurin has a fucking Q by his name, all right, and Lockett just lost his quarterback, and Keenan Allen is fucking. Look at that. He's about to kill Herbert. Look at his fucking face. He's like, you better not throw that ball to Williams one more time, white boy. So there's a good chance I could fucking float in OB joke here to be hard, and I'm seriously considering it
Yeah, I
because
mean it's crazy.
win or lose, like the OB joke gives me comedic value, which of course is the second most thing to winning. And I think losing or beating Spencer with OBJ would make it twice as much fun. So
Well, how does comedic value line up with style points from AB?
that's a great fucking question. I'll tell you this, it's hard to establish style points whenever anytime someone sees your team name, they have to fucking go back to the league page and search for, oh, okay, that's AB, to figure out which fucking team it is they're playing.
Yeah,
If
well,
if
like
te-
I was saying though, I think that Spencer's gonna win. I think he has a good matchups across the board here. Like DJ Moore playing Minnesota, even though the defense is a little bit better. I think that Carolina's gonna have a bounce back game. I already said that I think Detroit's gonna upset Cincinnati this week. I think Josh Jacobs will have a good game against Denver. I just think overall he's got good choices here. even with three Las Vegas players and no head coach.
I think I might flip the OBJ coin to be cute here, Ramp. I'm going to keep them on their toes in the audience.
Hey, I'll give you an extra 5 points for that. Okay.
Yeah, you should get some sort of multiplier for playing Odell Beckham. The catch.
The blonde hair award goes on your little profile picture.
You know what they should do? They should give him one fantasy point every time the catch is played or referenced in the
Oh,
broadcast. Then
yes.
Odell Beckham would actually be as valuable as newbies think he is. And on that note, we're signing off.